What's up and welcome to an episode of GizmoSlip. Today is the battle of the big boys. We have the 6.4 inch Note 9 versus the iPhone 10 Plus 6.5 inch. These are the two largest flagship phones ever released, and now which one of these phones are going to be the better phone coming up this fall? That's the main question that I'm going to try to answer in this video. Now, of course, the Note 9 has been officially announced. All the specs have been confirmed. The iPhone 10 Plus, on the other hand, we don't even know if that's the official name for the phone yet. Probably not, like the iPhone 10s Plus, maybe the iPhone 10 Pro, or maybe the iPhone Pro 2018 edition. We have literally no idea what it's going to be called, but we do have an idea of what the phone is going to be like. So we're going to be comparing these two phones that will be coming out in the next couple months, and I'm going to try to narrow down which of these two phones is going to be the better phone. Without further ado, let's hop right into it. So here are the rumored specs of the iPhone 10 Plus versus the specs we have confirmed for the Note 9. You can see we have the Snapdragon 845 versus the A12 Bionic. There's going to be quite a bit of performance difference here. We'll be talking about all of these in more detail in a moment. So we've got the 6.4 inch display versus a 6.5 inch display with a notch. We've got different size options and RAM options. Now, just because the Note 9 has more RAM, it's really not going to have that much of a noticeable difference, except maybe in active apps open at once. Now, with the Note 9, we have a 128 gig with 6 gigs of RAM and a 512 gig with 8 gigs of RAM. And of course, both of those have a micro SD slot, which is really nice. So you can have up to 912 gigs of storage with the Note 9, if you also get a 400 gig SD card slot. Now with the iPhone 10 Plus, all of them come with 4 gigs of RAM, but you have quite a variation between the storage size from 64, 256, and 512 gigs. Now I also wouldn't be surprised if they offered similar levels of storage like the Note 9, but we'll have to wait and see. Now, as you can see with the Note 9 and iPhone 10 Plus, we have similar levels of camera setup. The main advantage here, I think, is the front-facing camera is going to be a bit better on the Note 9. We've also got differences in battery size and IP ratings. Most likely, the iPhone 10 Plus will have the same rating as the iPhone 10 last year, which is an IP67 water and dust resistance. The first number represents its resistance to dust, and the second number represents its water resistance. So the Note 9 is going to have just a tiny bit more water resistance with a IP68 rating. Now let's talk about the meat of these phones right away. We're talking about the processor here. We've got the Snapdragon 845 versus Apple's own chip, the A12 Bionic. This is going to be the new upgraded chip that will be in the iPhone 10 Plus 2018 edition, and this thing should be about 10 to 20% faster. Now the main thing here is that the Snapdragon 845 is already a little bit behind the A11 Bionic by about 15 to 20%. I mean, it really depends on what benchmark you're looking at. For example, in Geekbench, the 845 scores around the 8400 mark, while the iPhone 10's current gen A11 scores around 10,000. Now, of course, those scores might reflect what you get rendering video. It's very hard to tell a difference when opening apps, and in fact, some Snapdragon 845 phones are actually more efficient and quicker at loading and closing apps. Like the OnePlus 6 is faster than the iPhone 10. So the straight benchmarking processor speed does not necessarily mean your phone's going to be faster in all aspects, just in certain areas. Now the major thing here is that the A12 Bionic chip should be quite a bit more efficient. And the other main thing is that the A11 is a 10 nanometer chip, while the A12 could be a 7 nanometer chip, which could massively increase its efficiency and power throughput for the same amount of power usage. Now, as far as gaming performance, the iPhone 10 is rumored to have a significant increase in GPU power. Now, the Note 9 and iPhone 10 from last year have very similar levels of 3D performance with their GPU. That said, the iPhone 10 Plus should have a quite a bit more powerful GPU, able to push out more frames per second in demanding titles such as Fortnite and PUBG Mobile. So depending on how good the A12 is, the new iPhone 10 Plus will likely be at least 20% faster, if not maybe up to 40 or 50% faster on the high end. That would be a very high end estimate though. Now design wise, the Note 8 is quite a bit boxier. We've got more squared off corners, while the iPhone 10 Plus will maintain its very rounded corners like the original iPhone 10. Now the Note 9 has a 6.4 inch display, and the great thing about the Note 9 is it has no notch, but it has significant top and bottom bezels. Of course, these bezels are a little bit smaller than they were on the Note Note 8, so that's good. That's a big part of how they were able to expand the screen by 1/10 of an inch. But the main thing to consider is that on the iPhone 10 Plus is you've got that notch, and that extra bit of space in the top right corner really isn't usable in most apps. You're only going to really see a benefit in apps like Instagram or Facebook, and technically even then the Note 9 screen is just going to be a tiny bit bigger. And of course you've got the fact that it's going to be a Samsung display. Samsung is known for having the best, the brightest, the most colorful, and the best contrast ratio displays out there. And they've had very high quality year after year. Now, Apple used a Samsung display in the original iPhone 10, and it was very, very good. But the downside here is that Apple's going to be switching most likely to LG making these displays. We don't know for sure yet, but that is the believed manufacturer of these displays since it's no longer going through Samsung. The big deal here is that LG's had issues with blue shift and color accuracy and some shadowing when you're lowering the brightness. What it comes down to is that the Note 9 is going to have a slightly better display, most likely. Now, both of these phones are going to feature dual 12 megapixel cameras, and of course on the Note 9 you're going to have a couple extra special features, such as an ultra slow motion mode at 960 frames per second. It'll be very interesting to see if Apple fires back and comes up with their own ultra slow motion burst mode that we've seen on a handful of Android devices this year. Now, the front cameras on both these devices are going to be superb, though I will say the Note 9's front camera will be a little bit better for video since you're going to be able to do at least 1440p. Now, back camera video is going to be fantastic with 60 frames per second, 4K. Overall, I expect to see a very incremental upgrade over the S9 Plus for the Note 9, and for the iPhone 10 Plus, I expect to see nearly identical, if not slightly improved performance compared to last year's iPhone 10. Now, one thing that's very important to consider when looking at both of these phones is how you unlock the device. The iPhone 10 from last year utilized Face ID 1.0. The new iPhone 10 Plus should have a new and improved Face ID 2.0 that should be faster, more reliable, and more responsive. Now, the downside here is that it's very unlikely that there will be a fingerprint sensor on the iPhone 10 Plus. And of course, at the same time, the Note 9 has facial recognition, iris scanning, fingerprint, and a pin unlocking. There's so many ways to open up the Note 9, it's just a lot more convenient. When you're comparing how these phones unlock, I will overall say the Note 9 has a bit of an advantage here because there's 4 different ways to unlock, while the iPhone only has Face ID and a pin unlocking system. That's just, in my opinion, not good enough. I really, really hope they include an in-screen fingerprint reader. Now, as far as battery life goes, the Note 9 has a 4,000 milliamp hour battery, and the iPhone 10 Plus is rumored to have between a 3,300 and 3,400 mAh battery. That means the Note 9 will have a massive advantage in the potential battery life that it can pull from, but the iPhone has always been more power efficient, always had smaller batteries, and they've always lasted very comparable amounts of time, though I think the Note 9 will probably barely outperform the iPhone 10 in the battery life department as well. Now, as far as specific pros and cons of each device go, I hate Bixby. I really dislike Samsung's bloatware that they put on all of their smartphones. You get 2 calendar apps, you get 2 messaging apps, you get 2 payment apps. I think it's a really silly move on Samsung's part to try to compete with Google. Just accept Google's basic functionality apps in the phone and move on. Now, on the flip side, iOS does have a lot more limitations than Android. For example, you want to download an app that's more than 150 megabytes. Well, you're good luck. On iOS, you're not able to do that. Whereas on Android, you can totally do it just fine. Like, I have unlimited data with T-Mobile. Let me use my unlimited data if I want to use it. A couple other issues with the iPhone is that I think it's harder to transfer files from the phone to your Windows laptop. And of course, there's lots of other additional things that are just really nice with the Android interface, customizations, lots of tweaking you can do. Well, the iOS interface, I think, is just a bit more optimized and more beautified, if that makes sense. Yeah, I think it just looks a little bit classier. Overall, I think both of these phones have areas to grow when it comes to both the software and how the operating system functions. Now, as far as price goes, we have the Note 9 coming in at $1,000 as of release and coming in at $1,250 if you want the 512 gig version. That's a huge price jump, but also a massive increase in storage space. Now, the iPhone 10 Plus will most likely be at least $1,100, if not $1,200, maybe even a little more, but I'm guessing close to that $1,200 price point for the base model. So as far as value goes, most likely the Note 9 will provide a bit more value for the buck because the base model will be a bit cheaper. So which of these devices am I gonna get? Well, both of them, and then I'm gonna test them out, and then I'm gonna decide between them after I have them in my hand. It's too hard to call exactly which one I'm gonna pick, but right now, I'm leaning more towards the iPhone 10 Plus, though I have pre-ordered a Note 9 512 gig. But I'm really curious, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below and in the poll in the top right. Which of these two phones would you buy? That's it for this episode of GizmoSlip. Let me know what you think, again, in the comments down below, and be sure to subscribe and tap that notification bell for more awesome tech videos, both on smartphones, laptops, and cool gadgets. We'll see you next time. Brandon, out.